everyone, and welcome to another intriguing and exciting episode of APAC's People Orbit. Today, we have with us Mr. Ashok Kanodia, Group Head, Strategic Rewards, HR Digital and People Processes at Godrej Industries Group. We welcome you on board, sir. It's a pleasure for us to be speaking with you today.
Pleasure coming here, Sugan. Thank you so much for inviting me, and congratulations on starting this amazing platform for people to share their thoughts.
Thank you so much, sir. We hope that we will impart as much of knowledge. You are able to impart as much of knowledge and experience you have upon this topic that we'll be discussing today, which is, themed at managing and navigating careers in the corporate world. Well, just to give a brief intro of what exactly we'll be speaking on in terms of the talking points today in our today's interaction for people to understand. Well, navigating a career in the corporate realm is much like, steering through a dynamic, ever-evolving kind of a landscape. It requires blend of strategy, thinking, adaptability, and continuous learning. Now, from the understanding of organizational hierarchies and workplace dynamics, it is important to build a personal brand and seize growth opportunities, managing a corporate career that goes far beyond just doing your job well. We'll be exploring in this topic, we'll be exploring the key elements that contribute to career growth in corporate settings, including mentorship, skill development, visibility, and the art of making strategic career moves. Sir, I open my first question to you. How has the concept of career management evolved in corporate world, and what role do organizations play in helping employees navigate their professional journeys?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sugan, for giving the context. I think from a career management perspective, and the world has evolved so much over several years. If you actually look back few years back, probably a generation back and all that, careers were what? Linear, basically, right? If you think a little bit about our parents, how they essentially saw careers. So basically, the aspiration was to join one big, large organization, and some of them were public sector, some of them were not. But essentially, it remained pretty much the same. You join, you spend pretty much your entire life into it. You essentially have a time linked promotion which you're waiting for, and then you essentially retire from there, right? That was the earlier trajectory. The world has changed significantly since then, right? So many options. The world is growing at massive pace. Career definitions have actually evolved at multiple layers, so to say. Earlier, if you remember, I think the large focus was saying that the organization will essentially take care of my career, and at some point in time I will get my growth, promotion, role, whatever trajectory which essentially is required will be taken care by the organization. I think now the overall perspective is multifold. First of all, I think one, there are several options of career, okay, both from an organization point of view as well as an employee point of view. An organization has multiple talent available in the in the overall market, and from an individual point of view as well, you have so many options now. So therefore, this has become a partnership in some sense. The ownership has actually moved from the organizations to the individuals themselves. Um, how do you take care of your own career is a bigger responsibility. In fact, today's world, you will see all the organizations largely talking about saying that employees are responsible for their own career and growth and trajectory.
Exactly.
Now, how do you essentially do that? You essentially need to know it's an element of multiple things. One is an element of aspiration, your individual aspiration. What do you want to do? Second is an element of essentially, what you're doing at what point in time, and you must be doing really well. At the heart of it is that you cannot say that I'm doing basically an average job. It doesn't work like that, right? So you aspire for something and you're doing something great at what you're already doing. And then there is a third element of essentially that what are the options available in the organization, right? So
Right.
organizations have several options, and depending on which organization, what skill set is required and all that. Now, the combination of three is the magic of this. Essentially, what do you aspire? What essentially you are actually doing great. Third is an element of what is available in the organization. Now, what do you do to achieve some of this in terms of your own development, in terms of your own growth, or in terms of the overall support which you get from an individuals who are working with you, especially the senior stakeholders? And some of these career trajectories are essentially carved out based on all of these factors combined together. It cannot be saying that I'm just going to be sitting on my job, I'm going to do a mediocre job, and essentially in 3-4 years I'm going to get promoted and get a role. That world has changed drastically
Indeed.
from what it was. And not to say that people earlier were doing mediocre job, everyone was doing great job at what they were doing. But having said that, it's highly more competitive, it's more individual driven. I think people need to own their own careers in line with what your aspirations and the opportunities that are existent in the organization sector. That's my view on this.
Do you also feel that, there is a certain burden, of responsibilities upon employees to draft their careers the way they want to? Because essentially, when we used to get into any good company, let's say a brand that we're working with, employees used to always think that, अब मैं इस कंपनी में आ गया हूँ और अब मेरा फ्यूचर यही डिजाइन करेंगे, because I'm working in a big brand, so to say, because there are number of hierarchies, so you could see his growth यहाँ से यहाँ, यहाँ से यहाँ. But today, as you see, that employees have this burden कि अपना career path उनको खुद डिजाइन करना है, so to say, कि उनका interest कहाँ है. You have to go up to your team leader and explain that this is my interest area and this is where you can hone my skills better. So do you think it's a burden on an employee's mindset also कि अभी it is not good enough to just work with a brand? I still have to, maintain calm and use my brain and carve my own path.
Yeah, I wouldn't say burden, I would say opportunity, Sugan. It's
Okay.
actually a great opportunity. So I think we need to see this in an overall holistic perspective. You can't say that I did an amazing job passing out from a great institute and my life is
Okay.
pretty much sorted. I wish the life was that simple. You passed out from a premier institute, get into a great brand because by virtue of you are good at what you are doing, you studied in a great institute. And then after that, please take care of me. I have nothing else to worry about. And I wish the world would have been that simple. Careers are spanned what? You pass out at the age of 25, 26. You retire at the age of 60 or something. You have a 30, 35-year-old journey, which is essentially a very long journey for careers. So it can't be saying that, what I learned, I just got into a setup and I'm going to just keep doing my job and now I'm your responsibility. The world is not simple. I would actually change this question a little bit to say that I don't think it's a burden for an individual and it's only an individual's responsibility. I genuinely feel it's a partnership, right? When an individual is coming to an organization, they're bringing something which is of value to the organization. Okay. And there is an expectation, there is a job description, there is a delivery which essentially the people are supposed to do. Okay. And when people perform well, organizations value that, right? So I don't think that it's an individual burden, that at some point in time it becomes a significant partnership for the organization, saying that you are bringing so much value and the individual themselves saying that now I want to grow with you together. So it's a combined journey together. Now, when I started the conversation, I said it's a great opportunity. Now, what I meant essentially saying that because you're there already in a brand, in a large organization and all that, the opportunities are so immense. And it is no more by that numerical value of saying so many number of years I've spent, therefore I will move up. Now, the canvas is yours, which essentially means that you're doing a great job. You can actually jump into several levels of roles and opportunities in an organizational setup versus you waiting like a 30-year, 20-year, 15-year horizon to say that I'm going to grow 3 or 4 years. You see such young professionals doing some amazing job at such senior levels at the age of 40s, becoming like CEOs of very large setups in an organization. How does that happen? It happens in a form of partnership, saying that because the individual has performed really, really well and the organization has seen value in that, saying that, you know what, we are going to invest in you. Why don't you invest yourself also to develop yourself further and we will take a bet on you. That's the model of partnership. I don't think it's individual. I don't think it's organization. The value is both sides.
Fair enough. You've summed up in a very holistic manner. So does mentorship and sponsorship, they also come in discussions of career paths when employees are actually designing of what they want to do? And in this framework, how can HR leaders they build a system that fosters these relationships equitably across the workforce?
No, that's a good point. I don't think we talk enough about sponsorship and mentorship. And actually, there are two different things, by the way. They're not the
Exactly. They
same
do different
same
things.
things essentially. I think fundamentally, I think in an organizational setup, when people are working, there are several things that you need for career, and one single thing doesn't work in tandem to say that, you know what, I have done this one great thing and therefore my career will be taken care. There are multiple factors, and I started by saying that your delivery needs to be really good. There needs to be opportunities in the organization themselves. The organization needs to see value in what you're doing. You essentially need to be aspiring for something and then essentially working towards your own development and other elements. I think one other element, which is, like I said, is not enough talked about, is mentorship and sponsorship, right? Now, you may be doing a fantastic job in an organization. Okay, you might be doing a really great job. Um, but sometimes the visibility of this becomes a very, very critical element. You know, who is actually seeing your job? Okay, are they actually able to see the great job which you're doing, to be able to promote this further? And therefore one of the critical elements in this becomes your sponsors. Now, some of these sponsors, typically not always, is your bosses and your skip level bosses, or some of the senior stakeholders who continuously interact with. These are the individuals, when you interface with them, when you talk to them, when you present them, because they're seeing your daily deliveries over there, they essentially see that. And in an organizational setup, please understand, it's a world of thousands of people, and there are so many senior stakeholders. Not everyone is seeing you. There are essentially some touch points which you have, and some of these senior sponsors are your touch points, right? And then in turn, they become your loudspeakers and the individuals who propagate to the outside world, to say that, to the people who take critical decisions, to say that, you know what, this person is doing a great job. And therefore it's very, very important to make sure that you have decent networks, decent relationships with people, and you're showcasing this at right forum. Some people actually mistake saying that, you know what, I'm doing a great job at my laptop, someone is going to actually notice it, and therefore my career will get taken care of. I wish the world was that simpler. It is not. You need to work hard to actually present your thoughts, your ideas in the forum where there are impactful people who are actually visibly seeing that. So that's one part of, we talked about sponsorship. I think the other critical element is mentorship, and they sometimes can be same but not necessarily same. Now, mentors are the individuals, and in some cases are senior stakeholders, and some cases could be others, but most likely a senior stakeholder, are actually genuinely interested to invest time and effort to actually develop you. And some of these are formal mentorships, and some of these are informal mentorship. Now, formal mentorships are actually formed by the organizations themselves. They will create enough forums and platforms in the organizational setup, saying, because I see value in it, value in you, I see value in what you're doing, I see you're doing some great delivery, and we see potential for you to actually do something more. But there are some development opportunities, we want to help you with that, and therefore we're going to assign a sponsor to you, a mentor to you. And this mentor essentially is going to handhold you and make you develop and see things which you are currently not able to see, and there are specific development areas which you will focus on. These are formal mentorship which organizations create platforms, and that's where the HR team plays a critical role, which Sugandhi were asking, saying that how do you actually
Right.
leverage these. Find great people who are great mentors, find great resources and individuals and employees who are doing some fantastic job and aspiring for something more, but they need further support. That's a combination which you work out to be. And sometimes, and in so many times, it's magic, right? Imagine a young professional with a senior leader, a great mentor, and some of these great mentors
So
essentially
don't you
will be.
think it's going to also create a void between them, because the thought process of working of a traditional person who's been working in the company for so long with a new mindset suddenly, colliding with two different thoughts, two different schools of thought? Won't you think that it's going to create more collision between the two?
Yeah, I'll come back to the word of partnership again on this one, Sugan. Okay, I
Okay.
in today's world, I please understand that the leaders, and I think the imagination of leaders is some really old person who's essentially sitting in the chair for last 20, 25 years, 30 years,
Exactly.
that's the imagination. That's not the world which we are living in, the corporate world anymore. I think that's the earlier history which we talked about. The world is not like, each of the senior leaders have actually done their own hard work to actually move up the ladder. Okay, and they've actually, that's how they've moved up. So I think first fundamental element we should talk about is such deep experiences which they bring. Okay, and experiences not only work delivery expertise, but also experiences in terms of so many other elements of navigating their own careers. Okay, now please understand, in today's corporate world, essentially the expectation and ask is of continuous learning. And there is a significant amount of focus for senior leaders on development of their own successions, of their own teams. If you see, if you start deeply analyzing on what people are getting evaluated in an organization setup, even at a senior leadership level, it's not about saying that you're going to just spend time and get delivered. There is a significant amount of time invested and expected to invest by senior leaders to develop talent in the organization. Okay, so that's one part of it. Second is that I think the combination of who's a mentor and who's a mentee is very, very important. You cannot have an extremely out of sync senior leader with a very, very young person who essentially is a mentee, and that's the role of an HR to you to match it, saying that this senior leader brings this on the
Exactly.
table. Yeah, that
So even
matching
if
is
the
very, very
partnership has to work, the HR has to foresee what kind of partnerships work. You can probably have a mid-senior kind of a level person with somebody who's like a mentee or a newbie, wherein the collaboration and the partnership goes hand in hand, and there is not
absolutely.
much of collision.
Absolutely. I mean, and therefore that combination, that matching is very, very critical requirement. Now, and it's not only the seniority and all that. What are the development opportunities for that mentee or the individual? Okay. And so when you're imagining mentorship only at an entry level, but I have seen mentorships even at entry, mid, senior levels. Learning is a continuous process, Sugan. So this matching which we do at for mentorship in an organization setup, and I've seen in multiple organizations, it doesn't matter what level you are. I have seen people as vice president level, senior vice president level, still being assigned mentors for development opportunities, and that pairing is a very, very critical element. So and depends on who you're looking at and what you're trying to develop for that person. So that's the summary of it.
If we talk about specifically your organization, what kind of initiatives have you introduced to help employees, avoid career stagnations, particularly in large or mature organizations? Since Godrej is not a mid-senior level kind of a company, it includes employees in holistic and huge numbers. So, if we talk about certain initiatives from your end, what would those be? Kind of an
Right.
enlightenment for people to know.
Yeah, I think career is an evolving process. You could keep learning with it. You keep taking feedback from people, whether it is from leaders or employees. Now, I think some of the frameworks which are actually has worked very well for Godrej is that we have very clear, defined processes on, first of all, career or talent identification. Okay, which essentially says is that if a person is really doing a good job, how do you actually go and identify that? And there are two elements, critical elements from our perspective, which we look at. One is the element of performance. Are you doing a good job and a great job at what you're doing? The first level, that's a hygiene criteria. Second is a critical element of potential. Now, when you say,
Okay.
and it's an X and a Y axis combination essentially, potential is your ability to take roles beyond what you're doing, and it is defined at several elements of saying that what you're doing, what's the opportunities which you have, what's the feedback which is coming from the senior stakeholders and all that. A combination of performance and potential essentially identifies an individual to say that this individual essentially is a good talent or a great talent, right? And not to say there is no bad talent as such, but essentially how do you differentiate a great talent and a good talent and an average person? Okay. Now, once you've identified a set of individuals, we know that these are individuals who are high potentials with a combination of performance as well. You invest a significant amount of time and money on different forms of development, right? And development starts from the point of saying that what is your own individual aspiration. You may have a high potential or a great talent, but it doesn't aspire to what the organization wants. His or her aspiration is completely different, and
Right.
therefore it becomes very critical to have these points of critical conversations on what is your aspirations. And then you work together with this particular individual to say that if this is your aspiration, let me carve out your development plan over several months and several years for you to actually achieve this. And we will handhold you through mentorship, through trainings, through job rotations and experiences and projects together. Uh, and all of this essentially at some point in time will lead to the career aspiration which you are looking at right now. And then therefore some of these journeys are year long, couple of years long. You continuously focus on it, continuously review this over a period of time, and you keep having these conversations saying whether it's working, whether it's not working.
Are there specific roadmaps designed within the organizations for mid-senior level kind of employees who are actually struggling to carve out a way, a path for their growth? So there are certain leaders. When I spoke with a few of them, and I read a survey also, not every mid-senior level person wants to go on to a level, that involves thousands or tons of people under them. They do not want to come under the scrutiny wherein they're responsible for, let's say, thousands of people under them. So is there a roadmap which is designed within the organizations for such mid-senior level kind of employees wherein they do not want to handhold many? They still want to focus on what they're doing. There could be certain limitations with them also, that we do have a baggage that we're carrying from our families as well, and probably I'm not in that position right now to handle tons of people under me, but I still want to grow. So is there a roadmap for them as well?
Yeah, this is actually a fantastic question, Sugan. People don't understand that growth is not about only essentially handling multiple people under you. Now, and there is a lot of research in this area, and I think there are two elements, and we should talk a little bit about leadership first, and this will answer
Okay.
some of the question which you are asking. Now, a lot of people see leadership as people management, right? My growth is I have grown up, I got a fancy designation, and I have like multiple people reporting into you. But that's not the only element of growth. Growth in an organization perspective is at multiple levels. And from our context, there is actually a couple of things. One is leadership, which we are talking about the standard. Second, there is an element of expert leadership. You might have an expertise in the area and domain what you're doing, and you not necessarily need to be a people manager in that. You could very well be an individual contributor or someone who's managing a small team which you are happy with and all. But the niche which you bring, the expertise, the skill sets which you bring essentially is a critical element to that. And that is also growth. That doesn't mean your level is not going to change, your salary is not going to change, you're not going to be sitting at a senior level and all that. So there are two streams of careers which people in all organizations actually take up. One is the stream of saying that you're going to become great people managers and leaders and you're going to manage larger roles which you're doing. The second is a domain of expertise. Now let's take a tech example. I'm not talking about some of the domains which we are in, but a tech example. You may have a fantastic tech person and really hates managing people, right? Now, for that person, essentially, if you start giving this person teams, now imagine, and has 10, 12 people reporting to this individual, now imagine the frustration this person is going to go. This person loves coding. Okay, but what you've done is actually you put this person saying, "Aap ek kaam karo, you manage these 15, 20 people which you have, and these 20 people is essentially going to take your time and you cannot code." Now imagine the frustration. This person is bound to leave. You're not helping the person, you're actually putting him in a very difficult spot and all. Therefore, from an organization perspective, there are two, three elements to answer this question. One is that you need to be very clear of the aspiration of the individual. Okay. Second, you should also know that some of these aspirations are contradictory to their own skill sets. Because it looks very nice to manage a team, everyone wants to manage and all that. Therefore, it's
Right.
very critical for people to. There are several psychometric tests, there are several assessments, there are so many discussions which happen on saying that are you really good at doing this? Maybe give an opportunity and see. Sometimes people realize I'm not good at managing people. This is something I don't want to do. Then please respect that. But you still don't want to lose that talent. You still want to retain that and support that on an expertise piece of that. So that's an important. The third one is have continuous conversations. I can't emphasize this enough. Organizations need to have enough platforms, formal platforms, honor this day-to-day hustle and run which they do, where people need to talk more about their own individual development and the organization's expectation of what we want from you. So that's a combination which needs to work together.
Also, now this arises another important question. How should, there's a question either how or they should be put into this framework or not. So should organizations support employees dealing with career setbacks like redundancies or missed leadership opportunities and turn them into opportunities or developmental experience, or should organizations stay away from such frameworks because it's contradictory in its view? If organizations delve deep into people's aspects and aspirations of what they want to do and how they want to grow, then they actually miss on the vision of the company itself. The studies say So if organizations are too much into upskilling, too much into reskilling, too much into scheduling what kind of career paths should their employees get into, they are actually losing out on the vision of the company because they're not able to focus on that aspect. So in your view, should organizations delve deeply into career path or should they stick to the vision of the company?
Yeah. I think the question to ask is saying like, what is an organization? Organization is not machines, it's not raw materials, it's not that fancy building which we look at and all that. I think first of all, I think we need to agree what is organization. Organization is that not that one person sitting in a room to saying this is my vision and I want to build this over there. On the organization is an outcome of people on a day in day out basis who are essentially delivering to achieve that vision and the aspiration which a few set of individuals essentially have. In some cases it could be one or two founders, it could be some CEOs, some promoters, but that is what organizations are all about. If organizations are living being of human beings running that, then how can you say that I am not going to be essentially associated with all the emotional aspect which comes together with it, whether it is in terms of aspiration, whether it is in terms of managing performance, redundancy. You are an integral part of it. And the faster we embrace this and realize this, that's the recipe of success for all large organizations across the world. Okay, people are at the center of everything and anything organizations do, unless you found a really smart person who basically just is a single person who's doing a beautiful job typing something on the computer and the money is being made, which I have still not found that kind of a business model. Now if that is the case, where it's a combination of saying that so many people who are going to run towards your aspiration and vision, then you have to embrace this as well, that with humans comes the set of elements which humans bring on the table, which is the element of zeal, enthusiasm, energy, delivery, passion, but also the elements of managing the emotional elements on good days, bad days, career, growth, money, right? Performance, and motivating them, engaging them, having bad days, having conflicts. There's so many elements. Therefore, probably the human resources function actually is the human resources function which tries to balance, saying that it's not materials, machines. It's actually the bridge on both parts of it. And you have to embrace this, accept it, and continuously work towards making people better to achieve that final vision. Similarly, the way you're investing in your technology, your AI, your high quality of products which you're bringing in, all of that, who's going to drive all of that? You may have a fantastic AI capability, but who's coding at the back end? It's that person. He needs to be engaged. He needs to be engaged to be able to have that fantastic coding done. So that's the view on that.
You've beautifully summed up too many elements into this question, but it still carves out a way of what you want to say. Now, I've also noted down of our discussion, I've noted down a few points which were key takeaways from today's discussion for people to understand what exactly is the conclusion that we've come down to. Well, successfully managing and navigating a career in the corporate realm, it is not just about, as you said, climbing the ladder. It is about growing with intention, staying adaptable, and making informed choices that align with both your values as well as professional aspirations. In a landscape shaped by constant change, those who remain curious, proactive, and open to learning are actually best positioned to thrive into any organizational realm wherein if there are hierarchies or not non-hierarchies, but this is the actual way of continuing to learn and grow. Whether it is leveraging mentorship, embracing lateral moves, or continuously upgrading your skill set, your career is ultimately your responsibility. Clear and in loud words is what we need to understand today. Now, with the right mindset, strategic planning, and a strong support network, you can actually turn challenges into stepping stones and build a meaningful, rewarding journey into the corporate realm. This is the kind of framework which I've laid out of today's discussion. So, is there anything else that you would like to add to the key takeaways from this session?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to add to this, especially to our young professionals, which essentially, and we can keep talking whichever generation or doesn't matter. I think what we should remember is that careers are, which I did touch upon in between, careers are essentially very, very long-term journey. they are not 1 year, 2 years. There's 30, 35 years journey, and in some cases actually longer because our retirement rate age is also actually moving right now. So if
Exactly,
it's going to
yes.
be a 35, 40 year old, so 30, 35, 40 year journey, these are marathons. These are not sprints. You're not essentially taking 1 year, 2 years, I'm going to run and just going to somehow get a senior level position over there. It doesn't work like that. So I think we should remember this. These are such long-term journeys, and the elements of continuous development, continuously focusing on what you're doing well, and also a critical element we don't talk Sugandh enough is patience. Everyone wants, it's not an instant
Which
noodle.
clearly nobody has today, because
Exactly.
since the time they join in the next position, they want to hold a CEO ban jaye.
Exactly. I wish that the careers would have been 2 minutes noodles and it would have just got cooked so fast and everyone would have been happy. That means everyone would have been sitting at CEO positions. It's an element of patience. It's very long-term journey, and it's like that plant which you have to continuously watering it, keep giving fertilizer, make sure that everything is right about that, and then it will become a beautiful tree which you can look at it and you can smile, and all the fruits which are coming out of it, and then you're going to look back and say that, oh, what a fantastic journey I've had. Look at this beautiful tree which has eventually come. But patience is a foundation of this.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasing experience to talk to you and to, grasp the knowledge that you have with your experience, especially the analytics and the real life examples which you've, quoted in today's discussion. For people who still have queries, who still have questions, onto this segment specifically, you can post your questions into the comment section, and sir will be happy to respond to all your queries. Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Sugan, thank you so much for inviting me. It was indeed a pleasure. Thank you so much for very insightful questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.